Southland International Airport, Priority Security Area. Federal Judge Naomi Whitaker walks with a calm, professional demeanor. At 55 years old, she carries the weight of responsibility as a federal judge for the Southern District of Texas. She wears a perfectly tailored charcoal gray business suit, but the detail that captures everyone's attention is her outer jacket in emerald green, fastened neatly, representing her deep personal faith. In her hand, she carries a reddish-brown leather briefcase. Inside are not divorce rulings or land disputes, but classified documents about Federal Border Security Fund allocation matters she will discuss in a closed meeting in Washington this afternoon. She is the final inspector, the gatekeeper against corruption. She glides past the long line of passengers and proceeds directly to the priority lane. There, standing in her path, blocking her way, is Border Patrol Officer Bryce Langford. Langford is around 30 years old, tall and imposing, dressed in a dark green Border Patrol uniform, with an almost thuggish arrogance. His badge number, 707, glints under the fluorescent lights. He stands at the security checkpoint, not to protect, but to prey. His eyes, cold and judgmental, scan each passenger, lingering especially long on those who appear successful but do not fit his prejudiced assumptions. When Judge Whitaker approaches, Langford's attention immediately focuses on her, not because of her jacket, but because of the calm and quiet authority she radiates. "Good morning, Judge," she says, presenting her federal judge identification card and first-class boarding pass. Langford does not move. He simply stares at her emerald jacket. "You can stop right here, Mrs. Whitaker." Whitaker pulls her hand back, still holding the cards. "Is there a problem, officer? I'm about to miss my flight." Langford jerks his chin toward the briefcase and jacket. "Your profile has a border security issue. We received an alert." "An alert?" Whitaker raises an eyebrow. "I've never had any alerts in my 55 years of life. Please present the legal basis for this alert, officer." Langford smirks. "We do not need to justify our border security operations to you, lady. That is the difference between the border zone and inland airports." He completely ignores the federal card in her hand. "We need to search that jacket right now." His words are sharp as a knife, not just a command, but a deliberate insult. Whitaker maintains her composure, but her voice becomes colder. "Officer, this jacket is part of my professional attire. A search without probable cause or a warrant is a blatant violation of my Fourth Amendment rights. Furthermore, this action may violate the Federal Religious Freedom Restoration Act." Langford bursts out laughing, causing several other passengers to turn and look. "Oh, we have got ourselves a sidewalk lawyer here. You want to lecture me about the law? This is the Homeland Security Zone. Your Constitution stops at that door." Whitaker stands firm, refusing to yield. "You are mistaken. My constitutional rights never stop. You are violating my civil rights, and if you proceed, I will ensure that your actions are examined at the federal criminal level." Langford sees the fire of anger in her eyes. He realizes this is not an easy target for bullying, but he has gone too far to back down. Moreover, her resistance only reinforces his self-righteousness. He steps closer, his muscular frame in the Border Patrol uniform nearly pressing against her. "Take off that jacket now," Langford growls. Whitaker shakes her head slightly. "I will not compromise my constitutional rights. Unless you present a warrant, I will not permit a search. I demand to speak with your Border Patrol supervisor." Langford, fed up with this educated resistance, decides it is ended. He has received clear signals that this is someone who needs to be put in her place. He also remembers the interdiction bonus he will receive if he completes this search. And what he does not know is that the airport security system is equipped with countless recording technologies. 16 wide-angle and zoom cameras from the ceiling and inspection counters are recording the entire incident. Langford quickly mutes and disables his body camera when he intercepts Mrs. Whitaker, another serious violation. But he forgets that the automatic recording system and Border Patrol servers are still automatically storing all data, including the audio of his and Whitaker's conversation without requiring officer activation. I'm warning you for the last... Officer, Whitaker says, her voice dropping with authority. You are conducting an action that will cost you your entire career. You are violating the law under the guise of authority. That is a crime. Langford raises his hand toward her face. Oh, so go ahead and call me a criminal, Judge. But the only criminal here is law-violating trash like you. Now I'm going to search that jacket by force. He has crossed the line. Officer Bryce Langford has crossed the line. His hand reaches out, aiming for Judge Naomi Whitaker's emerald jacket. Step back, officer. Whitaker's voice rings out with authority, not the plea of a victim, but the sharp command of a judge. She takes a small step back, just enough to avoid his sudden grab. But Langford is too drunk on power. I am warning you, Officer Langford. This action constitutes abuse of authority under the color of law, Whitaker says, her voice shifting from warning to declaration. I have cited the Federal Religious Freedom Restoration Act and the Fourth Amendment. You are acting unconstitutionally and deliberately offensively. Langford laughs loudly, raising his voice to attract attention. What is this RFA? You sidewalk lawyer, do not lecture me about the law. This is border security where we teach pretenders like you to comply. Now shut up. He grabs her outer jacket. Despite Whitaker's protest, Langford's yank is quick and violent. The emerald jacket is ripped from her shoulders, disheveling several strands of her hair. The delicate, high-quality fabric, a symbol of faith and dignity, flies through the air for a brief moment before falling onto the shiny tile floor of the airport. At that moment, it is as if a switch has been flipped. Dozens of passengers in the priority security area suddenly freeze. Judge Naomi Whitaker stands there, her elegant vest suit in stark contrast to the naked brutality of the violence just committed. This public humiliation is aimed not only at her personally, but at her faith and social position. Langford, maintaining his victorious posture, looks down at the jacket beneath him. He stomps on it contemptuously. Now everyone sees who you really are, lady, Langford shouts, his face full of satisfaction. Just violating trash, that is all. Do not think you can hide behind expensive suits or silk coverings. These racist and status-humiliating words are like a time bomb in the air. The crowd's reaction unfolds chaotically, but organized. Some airline and airport security staff awkwardly look down, following the silence rule. When federal agencies take action, an elderly woman covers her mouth, horrified. Several young people and a father standing nearby quickly pull out their phones and start recording. They say nothing, but their lenses are incorruptible witnesses. Within minutes, these videos are uploaded to social media with explosive hashtags: border tyranny, judge stripped, and badge 707. Outrage begins to spread in the virtual world. Langford does not care about the crowd. He continues his humiliating behavior. He bends down, picks up the emerald jacket with 2 fingers as if it is a filthy item. We will inspect this dangerous religious item, Langford mocks, waving the jacket up and down like a shabby trophy, then roughly stuffs it into a nearby trash bag. Taking off this jacket shows me you are not smuggling contraband, Langford declares, completing his fabricated accusation. This is border security. You are under arrest for resisting and disturbing the peace. Judge Whitaker's strategic response is not tears or screaming. She stands straight, her chest heaving with anger, but her eyes remain cold and sharp. 30 years of legal career have taught her that emotion is a luxury in the courtroom. Right now, this is a public trial, and she is in the witness position. She memorizes Langford's name and badge number 707, like nailing it into memory. Her silence in the face of his insults is more terrifying than any response. When Langford brings out handcuffs, Whitaker accepts. She lets him roughly handcuff her hands behind her back. You have just violated federal civil rights law, Officer Langford. Whitaker says in a deep, calm voice that echoes through the airport area. She looks directly into the phone camera lenses recording. I will ensure you face irreversible consequences. Langford smirks, self-satisfied. Oh, well, we will see about that, Judge. But as he leads her away, while the crowd of passengers and staff watch in stunned silence, something shifts in the air. The phones keep recording. The truth is being captured frame by frame, word by word. And somewhere deep in the secure servers of the Border Patrol system, every second of this encounter is being automatically backed up, preserved, waiting to be discovered. Judge Naomi Whitaker walks away in handcuffs, her head held high, her dignity intact. Despite the violation, she knows something Langford does not. She knows that in the end, the law will have its day, and that day is coming soon. Southland International Airport Border Patrol Detention Cell. The detention cell where Judge Naomi Whitaker is held is not designed for comfort. It is a stark concrete room, cold under harsh fluorescent lighting, with a metal bench bolted to the wall. There is no privacy, no dignity in this space. It is designed to break the spirit of those who enter. But Naomi Whitaker is not just anyone. She sits on that metal bench with the same composure she would have on the federal bench. Her hands, though no longer cuffed, rest calmly on her lap. Her mind is racing not with panic, but with legal strategy. She knows exactly what is happening. This is not just about one rogue officer. This is systemic. The immediate escalation, the fabricated security alert, the dismissal of her federal credentials, the deliberate targeting of her religious garment. All of it points to something deeper, something organized. Whitaker closes her eyes briefly, calling up her photographic memory of the federal statutes she studied and enforced for decades. Title 18, United States Code, Section 242, Deprivation of Rights under Color of Law. Title 18, Section 241, Conspiracy Against Rights, the Religious Freedom Restoration Act. Fourth Amendment protections against unreasonable search and seizure. She opens her eyes. The law is her weapon, and she knows exactly how to use it. Outside the cell in the corridor, two men stand in hushed conversation. One is Officer Bryce Langford, still riding high on his power trip. The other is a man in civilian clothes, mid-40s with graying temples and an expensive watch. His name is Chief Reginald Voss, Border Patrol Chief for the Galveston District. You did work, Langford, Voss says quietly, his voice barely above a whisper. She has been on our radar for weeks. That Washington meeting she is heading to, she was going to recommend cutting our discretionary funds. The interdiction bonuses, the equipment upgrades, all of it would have been gone. Langford nods eagerly. So what happens now, Chief? Now we make sure she misses that flight. We hold her as long as we legally can. By the time she gets released, the meeting will be over. Her credibility will be shot. Who is going to believe a judge who got arrested at an airport? We will spin it as uncooperative behavior, security concerns. The media will eat it up. And the jacket, the religious freedom thing. Voss smiles coldly. That is the beautiful part. We searched it thoroughly, found nothing. It becomes her word against ours. We were just doing our jobs, following protocol. She was being difficult, possibly unstable. You saw how she resisted, right? Right, Chief? Good. Now I need you to go write up your report. Make it airtight. Emphasize her aggressive behavior, her refusal to comply with lawful orders. Make it clear that you had reasonable suspicion. And Langford, make sure your body cam footage reflects that. Langford hesitates for just a moment. My body cam was off, Chief. I turned it off when I saw her approaching. You told me to. Voss's expression hardens. Then you better make damn sure no one finds out it was off. You understand me? If anyone asks, it malfunctioned. It happens all the time. Now go. Langford walks away and Voss stands there for a moment, staring at the closed door of the detention cell. He feels secure in his position, protected by layers of bureaucracy and the thin blue line that shields officers from accountability. What he does not know is that 3 cameras in the quarter have captured every word of their conversation. What he does not know is that the airport's independent security system, not under Border Patrol control, has been recording continuously. What he does not know is that in the detention cell, Judge Naomi Whitaker has been carefully timing the duration of her detention, noting every procedural violation, preparing her case. Inside the cell, Whitaker looks at the clock on the wall. She's been detained for over an hour without formal charges, without access to an attorney, without explanation of her rights beyond the Miranda warning hastily read to her in front of the crowd. She takes a deep breath. She knows that somewhere in Houston, her husband, Police Chief Nolan Whitaker, is probably wondering why she is not called. She knows her absence at the Washington meeting will be noted. She knows that the wheels of justice, though sometimes slow, are beginning to turn. And she knows something else. She knows that Bryce Langford and Reginald Voss have just made the biggest mistake of their lives. The door opens. A young Border Patrol officer looking uncomfortable steps inside. "Ma'am, Judge Whitaker, I am Officer Ramirez. I have been instructed to inform you that you are being released. No charges are being filed at this time." Whitaker stands slowly, every movement deliberate and controlled. "On what grounds am I being released? Officer Ramirez?" The young officer shifts uncomfortably. I do not have that information, ma'am. I'm just following orders. Where is Officer Langford?" "He's writing his report, ma'am. And Chief Voss, he is in his office." Whitaker nods. "Officer Ramirez, I need you to listen very carefully to what I'm about to say. Are you recording this conversation on your body camera?" Ramirez instinctively touches his chest where the camera is clipped. "Yes, ma'am. It is on." "I want it on the record that I'm filing a formal complaint against Officer Bryce Langford for violations of my Fourth Amendment rights, violations of the Religious Freedom Restoration Act, assault, theft of personal property, and civil rights violations under color of law. I am also filing a complaint against Chief Reginald Voss for conspiracy, failure to supervise, and deliberate indifference to constitutional violations. Do you understand?" Ramirez's eyes widen. "Ma'am, I do not know if I should be hearing this. Maybe you should speak to the chief." "Officer Ramirez, you are now a witness, and unlike Officer Langford, your body camera is functioning. I suggest you ensure that this footage is properly preserved and uploaded to the central server immediately. Can you do that?" "Yes, ma'am." "Thank you. Now, I would like my personal property returned, my briefcase, my boarding pass, and my jacket, particularly my jacket." Ramirez nods quickly and leaves. Minutes later, he returns with her briefcase and boarding pass, but no jacket. "Ma'am, they said the jacket is being held as evidence." "Evidence of what?" "There were no charges filed." "I do not know, ma'am. That is what they told me." Whitaker's jaw tightens, but she maintains her composure. "Then please provide me with a property receipt that clearly states my jacket is being held, the reason for holding it, and the name of the person authorizing its retention." Ramirez looks panicked. "I will have to ask." "Please do." He leaves again. This time he is gone for nearly 15 minutes. When he returns, he is accompanied by Chief Voss himself. Voss looks at Whitaker with barely concealed contempt. "Judge Whitaker, I understand you are making quite a fuss about your jacket." "Chief Voss, I'm not making a fuss. I'm exercising my legal rights. I want my property returned, or I want official documentation explaining why it is being retained. Your property was searched and cleared. However, we need to retain it for a few more hours for additional testing." "Testing for what?" "That is classified security information." "Chief Voss, I am a federal judge with top secret security clearance. What testing are you conducting that requires classification?" Voss's smile is thin and hostile. "With all due respect, Judge, your clearance does not extend to Border Patrol operational procedures. Your jacket will be returned to you within 24 hours. That is all I can tell you." Whitaker takes one step closer to him. Her voice drops to a steely whisper that only he can hear. Chief Voss, I do not know what game you are playing, but I want you to understand something very clearly. I know every federal statute related to civil rights violations. I know every appellate decision on qualified immunity. And I know that what you and Officer Langford did today was not just unconstitutional, it was criminal. Voss's face does not change, but something flickers in his eyes, uncertainty, fear. If you believe we violated your rights, Judge, you are free to file a complaint through the proper channels, but right now you are free to go. Your flight has already left, but I'm sure you can catch another one. Whitaker holds his gaze for a long moment. Then she turns to Officer Ramirez. Officer, please ensure that everything we have discussed is in your report. Everything? Ramirez nods nervously. Yes, ma'am. As Whitaker walks out of the detention area, she passes by Officer Langford, who is standing in the hallway, arms crossed, smirking. Their eyes meet, and in that moment, something unspoken passes between them. I thinks he has won. She knows he has not. Outside the airport, Whitaker pulls out her phone. She has 17 missed calls, 3 from her assistant, 8 from her husband, and 6 from colleagues in Washington. She calls her husband first. Naomi, where the hell have you been? I've been trying to reach you for over an hour. Garrett, I need you to listen very carefully. I was just detained at Southland Airport by Border Patrol. They assaulted me, violated my constitutional rights, and stole my personal property. I need you to contact FBI Special Agent in Charge Carla Ramirez immediately. Tell her I am invoking federal jurisdiction, and I need a civil rights investigation opened within the hour. There is a pause. When Garrett speaks again, his voice is ice cold. Are you hurt? No, I am angry, and I am going to make sure everyone involved pays for what they did. I will make the call right now. Come home. We will figure this out together. Whitaker hangs up and stands there for a moment, looking back at the airport terminal. Somewhere inside that building, Bryce Langford and Reginald Voss think they have successfully intimidated a federal judge. They think they have protected their corrupt little empire. They have no idea that they have just set in motion their own destruction. FBI Field Office, Houston. Special Agent in Charge Carla Ramirez sits across from Judge Naomi Whitaker in a secure conference room. On the table between them is a digital recorder, a legal pad, and a box of tissues that Whitaker has not touched. Ramirez, a veteran of 23 years with the FBI, has seen a lot. But the calm fury in Judge Whitaker's eyes is something different. This is not a victim seeking comfort. This is a legal warrior preparing for battle. Judge Whitaker, I want to start by saying that I am deeply sorry for what happened to you today. What you have described is unconscionable and potentially criminal. We are going to investigate this thoroughly. Whitaker nods. I appreciate that, Agent Ramirez, but I need you to understand something from the outset. This is not just about what happened to me. This is about a systemic problem. Officer Langford did not act alone, and Chief Voss's involvement suggests this goes higher. Ramirez leans forward. Explain what you mean. I was on my way to Washington to present findings about border security fund allocation. For the past 6 months, I've been reviewing budget requests and expenditure reports for the Galveston District Border Patrol. What I found was disturbing. Millions of dollars in discretionary spending that does not align with operational needs. Equipment purchases that seem excessive. And most troubling, a bonus structure that incentivizes aggressive interdiction without regard for constitutional protections. The Interdiction Bonus Program. Exactly. Officers receive financial bonuses for certain types of arrests and seizures. It is supposed to reward effective law enforcement, but it is being abused. Officers like Langford are targeting people based on appearance, ethnicity, and perceived wealth, hoping to justify searches that lead to asset seizures. Even when nothing illegal is found, the process itself is the punishment. People miss flights, lose time, lose dignity, and the Border Patrol gets to claim they are being tough on security. Ramirez writes this down carefully. Do you have documentation of this? Whitaker gestures to her briefcase. I have copies of everything in here. The originals were in my briefcase when I was detained, which means Langford and Voss now know exactly what I was carrying. That is why they detained me. That is why they took my jacket and humiliated me in public. They were trying to intimidate me into backing down from my presentation in Washington. That is a serious allegation, Judge. I know, and I can prove it. But I need your help. I need subpoenas for Border Patrol records, personnel files, body camera footage, the airport's independent security footage, and financial records for Langford and anyone else involved in this conspiracy. Ramirez studies Whitaker for a moment. You are not just filing a civil rights complaint, are you? You are building a criminal case. I'm a federal judge, Agent Ramirez. I do not just see the law as a shield. I see it as a sword, and right now, I'm going to use it to cut down everyone who thinks they are above it. Ramirez smiles grimly. Then let us get to work. For the next 3 hours, Judge Whitaker walks Agent Ramirez through every detail of the incident. The timing, the words spoken, the physical actions, the presence of witnesses, and most importantly, the cameras. Ramirez takes copious notes, stops frequently to ask clarifying questions, and begins to build what will become one of the most comprehensive civil rights investigations the FBI has conducted in years. As they are wrapping up, there is a knock on the door. Another agent enters carrying a laptop. Agent Ramirez, you need to see this. Ramirez opens the laptop and Whitaker leans in to look. On the screen is a social media feed, and it is exploding with activity. The hashtags border tyranny, judge stripped, and badge 707 are trending nationally. Videos of Whitaker's detention taken from multiple angles by passengers have been viewed millions of times. News outlets are picking up the story. Civil rights organizations are issuing statements. And in the comments section, thousands of people are sharing their own stories of abuse at the hands of Border Patrol officers. It has gone viral. The agent says, "We are getting calls from media outlets asking for comment. The Border Patrol is issuing denials, and there is already a petition calling for Officer Langford's badge. It has over 100,000 signatures." Whitaker watches the screen silently. She sees herself in those videos standing tall, even as her jacket is ripped away. She sees the shock on the faces of the witnesses. She sees the smirk on Langford's face as he handcuffs her. "Good," she says quietly. "Let them see what happens when you abuse power. Let them see what happens when you think no one is watching." Ramirez closes the laptop. "Judge Whitaker, I have to warn you, this is going to get uglier before it gets better. They are going to come after your credibility. They're going to try to paint you as difficult, as playing the victim card, as using your position to avoid legitimate security procedures. Are you prepared for that?" Whitaker meets her eyes. "Agent Ramirez, I have been a judge for 15 years. I have faced down gang leaders, corrupt politicians, and entitled executives who thought they could intimidate me. Do you really think a bully with a badge is going to make me back down? No, I do not suppose he will. Then let us finish this. I want those subpoenas issued tonight. I want body camera footage from every Border Patrol officer who was on duty at that checkpoint. I want the airport security footage pulled and preserved. And I want financial records for Langford and Voss going back 5 years. If they are taking kickbacks or embezzling funds, I want to know about it." Ramirez nods. "We will get started immediately. But Judge, there is one more thing. We need to consider your safety. If this is as big as you think it is, there may be people who want to silence you." Whitaker does not hesitate. "My husband is Houston Police Chief. I have protection. What I need from you is a guarantee that this investigation will not be buried or delayed. Can you give me that?" Ramirez extends her hand. "You have my word. We are going to see this through to the end." They shake hands, and for the first time since this morning, Whitaker allows herself a small smile. The game has changed. She is no longer a victim in a detention cell. She is a prosecutor with the full power of the federal government behind her. And Bryce Langford and Reginald Voss have no idea what is coming for them. FBI Fields, Houston, 1 week later. In the bullpen of the FBI's Civil Rights Division, dozens of agents are working around the clock. Whiteboards covered in timelines, photographs, and organizational charts line the walls. Computer screens display financial spreadsheets, video footage, and personnel records. At the center of it all is Special Agent in Charge Carla Ramirez, coordinating what has become the most high-profile investigation of her career. "All right, people, let us go through what we have so far," Ramirez calls out. The room quiets, and agents gather around the main conference table. Agent David Chen, the team's financial analyst, goes first. "We have pulled 5 years of financial records for Officer Bryce Langford and Chief Reginald Voss. The patterns are pretty damning. Langford's reported income is $72,000 a year, but his spending patterns suggest he is living at nearly double that. Multiple cash deposits that do not match his pay schedule, high-end purchases, payments to luxury hotels and restaurants. He is either independently wealthy, which his background check suggests he is not, or he is getting money from somewhere else." Ramirez nods. "And Voss, even more interesting. Voss's base salary is $95,000, but over the past 5 years, he has deposited over $200,000 in unexplained cash into various accounts. He is using his wife's maiden name on some of them, probably thinking that would hide the connection." It did not. "We have also found wire transfers from a shell corporation registered in Delaware. That corporation received funds from the Border Patrol's discretionary equipment budget. So he is embezzling federal funds." "It looks that way. The shell corporation is supposed to be a vendor for surveillance equipment, but we have contacted the manufacturer and they say they have never done business with that company. The money went in, and then it came right back out to Voss's personal accounts." Ramirez makes a note. "That is mail fraud, wire fraud, and theft of federal funds, federal offenses with serious prison time. Good work, Chen. What else?" Agent Maria Santos, the team's digital forensics expert, stands up. "We pulled all the body camera footage from the checkpoint that day. As Judge Whitaker suspected, Officer Langford's camera was disabled. But here is where it gets interesting. Langford disabled his camera at exactly the moment before Judge Whitaker arrived at the checkpoint. That suggests premeditation. He knew she was coming and he turned off his camera deliberately." "How did he know?" "We pulled the airport's passenger manifest and cross-referenced it with Border Patrol's database access logs. Someone in the Border Patrol system ran Judge Whitaker's name through the system before she arrived at your checkpoint. The query came from Chief Voss's computer terminal." The room goes silent. This is the smoking gun. Ramirez leans back in her chair. "So Voss ran her name, saw she was flying to Washington, and told Langford to intercept her, and Langford turned off his body camera, so there would be no official record of what he was about to do. That is what the evidence suggests." Santos confirms, but there is more. "We pulled the airport's independent security footage. It is high definition, multi-angle, and it captured everything. The assault, the jacket being ripped off, the verbal abuse, all of it. We also have audio. The mics on those cameras are good. We can hear every word Langford said." "Show me." Santos cues up the footage on the main screen. The room watches in silence as the incident unfolds. Even knowing what happened, seeing it again is shocking. The casual brutality, the contempt in Langford's voice, the way he deliberately humiliates a federal judge in front of dozens of witnesses. When the footage ends, Ramirez speaks. "Make copies of that. Multiple copies. Store them in separate locations. If this goes to trial, that video is going to be Exhibit A." Agent Thomas Bradford, the team's legal specialist, raises his hand. "We have also been looking into the complaint system at the Galveston District Border Patrol. In the past 5 years, there have been 67 complaints filed against officers in that district. Of those 67, Chief Voss personally dismissed 59 without investigation. The remaining 8 were investigated but resulted in no disciplinary action. So he has been running interference for bad officers. It sure looks that way. And get this. Officer Langford has had 14 complaints filed against him personally, all dismissed by Voss without investigation. The complaints include excessive force, racial profiling, theft of property, and sexual harassment. Ramirez feels her anger rising. This is not just about one incident. This is about a systematic pattern of abuse that has been allowed to continue because the person in charge was corrupt. We need to interview victims. I want statements from everyone who filed a complaint against Langford. I want to know if there are other judges, lawyers, or public figures who were targeted. And I want to know if anyone else in the Border Patrol knew what Voss was doing. Agent Bradford nods. Already on it. We have reached out to 23 complainants so far. 18 have agreed to come in for interviews. The stories they are telling are horrifying. One woman, an immigration attorney, says Langford sexually assaulted her during a secondary screening. Another man, a city councilman, says Voss threatened to destroy his career if he did not drop a complaint about racial profiling. Ramirez stands up. All right, here's what we are going to do. Chen, keep following the money. I want to know where every dollar came from and where it went. Sans, get me transcripts of all the audio from the security footage. Bradford, start building a victims list. Everyone Langford and Voss hurt, everyone they intimidated, everyone they silenced. We are going to give them all a voice. The agents disperse, energized by the scope of the case. As they work, Ramirez sits back down and opens a file on her desk. It is Judge Whitaker's original briefcase documents, the one she was carrying to Washington. Ramirez read through them carefully. Whitaker was not exaggerating. The evidence of financial mismanagement and abuse within the Border Patrol is overwhelming. Equipment purchases that make no sense, budget allocations that disappeared, bonuses paid to officers who had multiple complaints against them. And at the center of it all, Chief Reginald Voss and Officer Bryce Langford. Ramirez closes the file and picks up her phone. She calls Judge Whitaker. Agent Ramirez, Judge Whitaker, I wanted to give you an update. We have made significant progress. The evidence is mounting and it is worse than we thought. Langford and Voss are not just corrupt officers. They are part of a systemic pattern of abuse that has been going on for years. There is a pause on the other end of the line. Then Whitaker speaks, her voice steady but fierce. Then we need to make sure they go down hard. Not just Langford and Voss, but everyone who enabled them, everyone who looked the other way, everyone who benefited from this corruption. That is exactly what we are going to do. I'm presenting this to the U.S. Attorney next week. We are going to recommend federal criminal charges, multiple charges. This is going to be big, Judge. Really big. Good. Because if we do not stop them now, they will just keep hurting people, and I refuse to let that happen. Ramirez smiles. You know, Judge, when I first met you, I thought you were angry, but now I realize you are not angry. You are determined, and there is nothing more dangerous than a determined judge with the law on her side. You are damn right about that, Agent Ramirez. You are damn right. United States Attorney's Office, Houston. United States Attorney Victor Ramsey sits at the head of a long conference table, surrounded by FBI agents, assistant U.S. attorneys, and legal advisors. On the table in front of him is a thick binder containing the evidence against Officer Bryce Langford and Chief Reginald Voss. Ramsey, a career prosecutor with a reputation for taking on difficult cases, opens the binder and begins reading. The room is silent except for the occasional shuffle of papers. After 20 minutes, he closes the binder and looks up at Agent Ramirez. This is one of the most comprehensive cases I have seen in my 15 years as U.S. Attorney. The evidence is overwhelming. The crimes are numerous and serious, and the victims deserve justice. So here's what we are going to do. He stands up and walks to the whiteboard at the front of the room. In bold letters, he writes, United States versus Bryce Langford and Reginald Voss. We are going to charge both defendants with multiple federal crimes. For Officer Langford, deprivation of rights under color of law, a violation of Title 18, U.S. Code, Section 242. This carries a maximum of 10 years. Assault, a violation of Title 18, Section 113. Civil rights conspiracy, a violation of Title 18, Section 241. He continues writing. For Chief Voss, conspiracy to deprive rights under color of law. Theft of federal funds, a violation of Title 18, Section 641. Wire fraud, a violation of Title 18, Section 343. Mail fraud, a violation of Title 18, Section 1341. Obstruction of justice, a violation of Title 18, Section 1512. And civil rights violations. Assistant U.S. Attorney Laura Kim raises her hand. What about RICO charges? This looks like an ongoing criminal enterprise to me. Ramsey nods. I considered that, but RICO is difficult to prove, and we do not want to overreach. What we have here is already enough to put both of them away for decades. Let us focus on the charges we can prove beyond a reasonable doubt. What about the other officers? The ones who were present but did not intervene? We will deal with them separately. Some may be called as witnesses. Others may face disciplinary action through internal channels. But our main targets are Langford and Voss. They are the ringleaders. Agent Ramirez leans forward. When do we arrest them? Ramsey smiles grimly. Tomorrow morning we will execute arrest warrants simultaneously. I want both of them in custody before they have a chance to coordinate their stories or destroy evidence. And I want it done publicly. I want every officer in that district to see that corruption has consequences. The next morning, 2 teams of FBI agents execute the arrest warrants. At Officer Bryce Langford's apartment in a modest Houston suburb, agents knock loudly on the door. When Langford opens it, still in his pajamas, he is met with the sight of 6 armed agents in tactical gear. Bryce Langford, you are under arrest for civil rights violations and assault. Put your hands behind your back. Langford's face goes pale. What? I was just doing my job. Save it for your lawyer, the lead agent says, snapping handcuffs onto his wrists. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. As the Miranda warning is read, Langford's neighbors begin to emerge from their homes, watching in shock as a Border Patrol officer is perp-walked to a waiting FBI vehicle. Simultaneously, at Chief Reginald Voss's upscale home in the suburbs, another team of agents is making their move. Unlike Langford, Voss is awake and dressed, almost as if he has been expecting this. When the agents knock, he opens the door calmly. I assume you are here for me, he says. Reginald Voss, you are under arrest for conspiracy, theft of federal funds, wire fraud, and civil rights violations. Put your hands behind your back. Voss complies without resistance, but as the handcuffs click shut, he speaks quietly. I want my lawyer, and I'm not saying anything without him present. Smart move, the lead agent says. You're going to need a good one. By noon, both Langford and Voss have been processed, photographed, and held in federal custody. The news has broken nationally. Videos of their arrests are playing on every major network. The hashtags that started after Judge Whitaker's detention are now exploding again, but this time with a different tone. Justice 707. In the U.S. Attorney's Office, Judge Naomi Whitaker sits with Agent Ramirez and U.S. Attorney Ramsey watching the news coverage. How does it feel? U.S. Attorney Ramsey asks. Whitaker does not answer immediately. She watches as the screen shows Officer Langford being led into the federal courthouse in handcuffs. His head down, his arrogance completely gone. It feels like the beginning, she finally says, not the end. The beginning, because this is not just about 2 corrupt officers. This is about a system that allowed them to operate with impunity for years, and we need to dismantle that system piece by piece. Ramsey nods. We are with you on that, Judge, all the way. The indictment is unsealed the next day. It is a 47-page document detailing every crime, every abuse, every violation committed by Langford and Voss. The evidence includes body camera footage, security footage, financial records, witness testimony, and expert analysis. When the document is released to the public, it sends shockwaves through law enforcement communities nationwide. Officers who thought they were untouchable suddenly realize they are not. Complaints that were dismissed for years are being reopened. Internal affairs departments are scrambling to review their procedures, and at the center of it all is Judge Naomi Whitaker, the woman who refused to be silenced, who refused to be intimidated, who used her knowledge of the law to bring down a corrupt empire. But the fight is far from over. The trial is still ahead, and Langford and Voss, facing decades in prison, are going to fight with everything they have. The question is, will it be enough? Federal Courthouse, Houston. The courtroom is packed. Every seat in the gallery is filled with reporters, civil rights advocates, law enforcement officials, and members of the public who have been following this case since the viral videos first appeared. At the prosecution table sits U.S. Attorney Victor Ramsey and his team. At the defense table are Officer Bryce Langford and Chief Reginald Voss, each with their own high-priced defense attorneys. And on the bench, presiding over this trial with steely authority, is Judge William Patterson, a no-nonsense jurist with 30 years of experience. The jury has been selected carefully. 8 women, 4 men, diverse in age and ethnicity, all of whom swore they could be impartial despite the intense media coverage. Judge Patterson bangs his gavel. The court is now in session. Counsel, are you ready to proceed with opening statements? U.S. Attorney Ramsey stands. Yes, Your Honor. The government is ready. You may proceed. Ramsey walks slowly to the jury box, making eye contact with each juror before he begins to speak. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this case is about power. It is about what happens when people who are entrusted with authority abuse that power for their own gain, and what happens when someone brave enough stands up to them. He gestures toward where Judge Whitaker sits in the gallery. On the morning in question, Judge Naomi Whitaker, a federal judge with an impeccable record of service, was on her way to Washington to present findings about financial mismanagement in the Border Patrol. She was carrying classified documents that would expose corruption, embezzlement, and abuse. And because of that, she was targeted. Ramsey walks back to the prosecution table and picks up a remote control. The courtroom screens light up with security footage from the airport. What you are about to see is not entertainment. It is not a movie. It is real footage of what happened when Judge Whitaker tried to exercise her constitutional rights. It is footage of assault, theft, and humiliation, all carried out by a law enforcement officer who thought he was above the law. The footage plays. The courtroom watches in silence as Officer Langford rips the jacket from Judge Whitaker's shoulders, as he stomps on it, as he insults her and handcuffs her. Several jurors visibly wince. When the footage ends, Ramsey continues. Officer Bryce Langford, the defendant sitting at that table, violated Judge Whitaker's Fourth Amendment rights. He violated the Religious Freedom Restoration Act, he assaulted her, he stole her property, and he did all of this under the supervision and direction of Chief Reginald Voss, who orchestrated this entire incident to protect a corrupt system that was making both of them rich. Ramsey's voice rises. Over the next few weeks, we will prove beyond a reasonable doubt that these defendants conspired to violate Judge Whitaker's civil rights. We will prove they embezzled federal funds, we will prove they obstructed justice, and we will prove that they did all of this while wearing badges that were supposed to represent honor, integrity, and service. He pauses, letting the words sink in. Justice is not just about punishing the guilty. It is about protecting the innocent. It is about ensuring that no one, no matter how powerful, is above the law, and that is exactly what we are going to prove in this case. Thank you. Ramsey sits down, and Judge Patterson looks to the defense table. Counsel for the defense, your opening statement. Langford's attorney, a slick-looking man in an expensive suit named Clayton Reeves, stands up. His strategy is immediately clear: attack the victim's credibility. Ladies and gentlemen, my client, Officer Bryce Langford, has served his country honorably for 8 years. He has made hundreds of arrests, prevented countless crimes, and put his life on the line every single day to keep this country safe. And what does he get for his service? He gets accused of being a criminal by a woman who could not follow simple security procedures. Several reporters in the gallery gasp, and Judge Whitaker, sitting calmly in the second row, does not even blink. Reeves continues. The prosecution wants you to believe that Officer Langford is some kind of monster, but the truth is much simpler. Judge Whitaker was asked to comply with a routine security screening. She refused. She became combative. She made false claims about religious freedom to avoid a lawful search. And when Officer Langford attempted to do his job, she played the victim card. He walks toward the jury box. Think about it. Judge Whitaker is a powerful woman, a federal judge, someone who knows how to manipulate the legal system, and she used that power to turn a routine security incident into a federal case because she was embarrassed. That is all this is. Embarrassment and revenge. He points at the prosecution table. The government wants to destroy my client's career, his reputation, and his freedom, all because he did his job. Do not let them. Look at the evidence with clear eyes, and you will see that Officer Langford is not a criminal. He is a scapegoat. Reeves sits down, looking confident. Next is Voss's attorney, a sharp-dressed woman named Rebecca Lang. Ladies and gentlemen, my client, Chief Reginald Voss, has dedicated his entire life to public service. He is a decorated officer with 25 years of experience. He is a husband, a father, and a man of integrity. And yet, the government wants you to believe he is a criminal mastermind who orchestrated some elaborate conspiracy to violate a judge's civil rights. It is absurd. Long walks toward the jury. The prosecution is going to show you financial records and make it sound sinister. But there is nothing illegal about how Chief Voss manages his personal finances. There is nothing illegal about investments, about bonuses, about legitimate income. What they are doing is taking legal activity and spinning it into a criminal conspiracy because they need a villain. She gestures toward Judge Whitaker. Judge Whitaker was stopped for a routine security check, that is all. There was no conspiracy, there was no targeting, and Chief Voss did not even interact with her that day. He's being prosecuted simply because he is Officer Langford's supervisor. That is guilt by association, and it is not justice. Long sits down, and Judge Patterson addresses the jury. Ladies and gentlemen, you have heard opening statements from both sides. Remember, these are not evidence. They are previews of what each side believes the evidence will show. Your job is to listen carefully to all the evidence, evaluate the credibility of witnesses, and determine what really happened. Court is adjourned until tomorrow morning, when we will begin with the prosecution's first witness. As the courtroom clears, Judge Whitaker remains seated. She watches as Langford and Voss are led away by U.S. Marshals, their confident facades beginning to crack. Agent Ramirez sits down beside her. How are you holding up, Judge? Whitaker does not take her eyes off the defendants. I'm fine. Ready to testify. Ready to see this through. Their attorneys are going to come after you hard. They're going to try to make you look unreasonable, combative, attention-seeking. Whitaker finally turns to look at Ramirez. Let them try. I've been on the bench for 15 years. I know how cross-examination works, and I know how to tell the truth clearly and credibly. That is all I need to do. You are remarkable. You know that. Whitaker smiles faintly. I'm just a woman who refused to be silenced. That should not be remarkable. It should be normal. Federal Courthouse, Houston. Day 2 of trial. The courtroom is silent as U.S. Attorney Ramsey calls his first witness. The government calls Judge Naomi Whitaker to the stand. All eyes turn to the gallery as Judge Whitaker stands. She walks to the witness stand with the same calm dignity she had on that day at the airport. She is sworn in, and she takes her seat, looking directly at the jury. Ramsey begins gently. Judge Whitaker, please state your full name and occupation for the record. My name is Naomi Elizabeth Whitaker. I am a United States District Judge for the Southern District of Texas. How long have you served as a federal judge? 15 years, and before that, I was a prosecutor in the Harris County District Attorney's Office for 8 years. And before that, I was a public defender for 5 years. Ramsey nods. So you have nearly 30 years of legal experience? Yes. Judge Whitaker, I would like to direct your attention to the morning in question. Can you tell the jury what you were doing that morning? Whitaker takes a breath. I was flying to Washington for a confidential meeting with Department of Homeland Security officials. I was carrying classified documents related to Border Patrol budget allocation and was scheduled to present findings about financial irregularities I had discovered during a 6-month review. What time did you arrive at the airport? Around 10 a.m., my flight was scheduled to depart at 11:15. And what happened when you arrived at the priority security checkpoint? Whitaker's voice is steady, clear, and precise. I approached the checkpoint and presented my federal judge identification and boarding pass to the officer on duty. That officer was the defendant, Bryce Langford. She points to Langford at the defense table. Several jurors follow her gesture. What was Officer Langford's initial response? He refused to accept my credentials. Instead, he told me to stop, claiming there was a security alert on my profile. When I asked for clarification, he refused to provide it. I then demanded that I remove my outer jacket for inspection. Can you describe this jacket? It was an emerald green jacket that I wear for personal religious reasons. It is part of my professional attire and holds significant spiritual meaning to me. What did you say when Officer Langford demanded you remove it? I informed him that searching my religious garment without probable cause or a warrant would violate my Fourth Amendment rights and the Religious Freedom Restoration Act. I was polite but firm. I asked to speak with his supervisor. And how did Officer Langford respond? Whitaker's expression does not change, but her voice carries the weight of memory. He became hostile. He told me my constitutional rights did not apply at the border checkpoint. He mocked me, called me a sidewalk lawyer, and dismissed my legal arguments entirely. Then he physically grabbed my jacket and ripped it off my shoulders. Ramsey walks to the evidence table and picks up a clear bag containing the torn emerald jacket. He holds it up for the jury to see. Is this the jacket in question? Yes, that is it. And after Officer Langford removed your jacket, what did he do? He threw it on the ground and stomped on it. Then he made derogatory comments about my ethnicity and social status, calling me violating trash and suggesting I was trying to hide behind expensive clothing. He then stuffed the jacket into a trash bag. Several jurors look visibly disturbed. Ramsey gives them a moment before continuing. What happened next? He handcuffed me, arrested me for obstruction and disturbing the peace, and detained me for over an hour. During that time, I missed my flight and was unable to attend the Washington meeting. Were you ever formally charged with any crime? No. I was released without charges after Chief Voss apparently decided the incident was too risky to pursue. Ramsey returns to the prosecution table. Judge Whitaker, I have just a few more questions. When Officer Langford was searching your jacket and briefcase, did he find any contraband, weapons, or illegal materials? No, he found nothing illegal. Did you resist him physically at any point? No, I did not. Did you threaten him? No. Did you do anything that would justify his use of force? Absolutely not. Thank you, Judge Whitaker. No further questions, Your Honor. Judge Patterson looks to the defense table. Counsel, your witness. Clayton Reeves, Langford's attorney, stands up with an aggressive smile. This is his moment to try to tear down Judge Whitaker's credibility. Judge Whitaker, you say you were carrying classified documents to Washington. Is it not true that classified materials require special handling and screening procedures or a kit? Yes, that is correct. And is it not also true that officers have the right to inspect such materials if they suspect a security risk, only with proper authorization and following established protocols? Officer Langford had neither. Reeves does not like that answer. He tries a different angle. You describe yourself as cooperative, but is it not true that you refused a direct order from Officer Langford? I declined to waive my constitutional rights. Yes, that is not the same as being uncooperative. I offered multiple times to comply with lawful procedures, but you admit you refused his order. Whitaker looks directly at Reeves. I refused an unlawful order. There is a significant difference, counselor. As a federal judge, I have a duty to uphold the Constitution, not to blindly obey commands that violate it. Reeves bristles. Is it not possible, Judge Whitaker, that you simply overreacted, that you were having a bad day and turned a routine security check into a federal case? No, that is not what happened. But you were stressed, were you not? You were carrying important documents. You were worried about making your flight. You were under pressure. I was calm and professional throughout the entire encounter. The stress I felt came from being unlawfully detained, assaulted, and humiliated by an officer who was abusing his authority. Reeves changes tactics again. Judge Whitaker, you have filed civil lawsuits against Officer Langford and Chief Voss, have you not? Yes, I have. And you stand to win a significant financial settlement if they are convicted, do you not? Ramsey jumps up. Objection, Your Honor. That is irrelevant and improper. Sustained, Judge Patterson says sternly. Counsel, focus on the facts of the case, not speculation about civil proceedings. Reeves nods, but the damage is done. He has planted a seed of doubt about Whitaker's motives. No further questions. As Whitaker steps down from the stand, she makes brief eye contact with Langford. He looks away quickly, unable to hold her gaze. Over the next 2 weeks, Ramsey methodically builds his case. He calls witness after witness, each adding another piece to the puzzle. Agent Maria Santos testifies about the body camera footage, explaining how Langford deliberately disabled his camera before the incident. Agent David Chen presents financial records showing unexplained deposits into Langford and Voss's accounts. Multiple passengers who witnessed the incident testify about what they saw and heard. An expert on the Religious Freedom Restoration Act explains why Langford's actions were a clear violation. And perhaps most damaging, 3 other victims of Langford's abuse take the stand, describing similar incidents of humiliation, theft, and violence. By the time the prosecution rests its case, the evidence is overwhelming. But the defense is not done fighting yet. Federal Courthouse, Houston. The defense's strategy is simple. Deny, deflect, and blame the victim. Langford takes the stand in his own defense, dressed in a neat suit, his hair combed, his demeanor humble. His attorney, Clayton Reeves, leads him through a carefully scripted testimony. Officer Langford, can you tell the jury in your own words what happened on the morning in question? Langford takes a deep breath. I was doing my job. I saw Judge Whitaker approaching the checkpoint, and I noticed she was carrying a briefcase and wearing what appeared to be a non-standard garment. My training tells me to investigate anything unusual, so I stopped her for additional screening. And what was her response? She became immediately defensive. She started lecturing me about constitutional rights, refusing to comply with basic security procedures. I tried to be patient, but she escalated the situation. Did you assault her? No, absolutely not. I removed her jacket as part of a legitimate security search. When she continued to resist, I had no choice but to detain her for everyone's safety. Did you use excessive force? No, sir. Everything I did was within the guidelines of my training and the authority granted to me by federal law. Ramsey watches this performance with barely concealed disgust. When it is his turn to cross-examine, he wastes no time. Officer Langford, you just testified that you removed Judge Whitaker's jacket as part of a security search. Is that correct? Yes. And you claim you had reasonable suspicion to conduct that search? Sure. Yes. What specifically gave you reasonable suspicion? Langford hesitates. The jacket looked unusual. It could have concealed contraband. But it was an outer garment worn over professional business attire. You could see she was not concealing a weapon or anything dangerous. Could you not? I could not be certain. Officer Langford, how many passengers wearing unusual religious garments do you screen on a typical day? I do not know. More than 10? Well, maybe more than 20, probably not. So you do not routinely stop everyone wearing religious garments, do you? No. Then why Judge Whitaker? Why target her specifically? Langford stammers. I did not target her. It was random. Ramsey picks up a document. Officer Langford, this is a log from the Border Patrol computer system showing that someone accessed Judge Whitaker's passenger information before she arrived at your checkpoint. That person used Chief Voss's login credentials. Do you have any explanation for that? No, I do not know anything about that. You did not discuss Judge Whitaker with Chief Voss before she arrived. No. You did not turn off your body camera deliberately before approaching her. It malfunctioned. It malfunctioned at exactly the moment you decided to stop a federal judge who was carrying evidence of corruption in your department. That is quite a coincidence, is it not? I guess so. Ramsey leans in. Officer Langford, you have been caught in multiple lies in this testimony. The evidence shows you targeted Judge Whitaker, that you coordinated with Chief Voss, that you disabled your camera to avoid accountability, and that you assaulted her in violation of her constitutional rights. Is that not the truth? Langford looks cornered. I was just doing my job. No, Officer Langford. You were abusing your authority and you got caught. The cross-examination continues for hours, and by the end, Langford's credibility is in tatters. Chief Voss's testimony is equally damaging. He tries to claim ignorance of Langford's actions, but Ramsey destroys him with financial records, emails, and testimony from other officers who witnessed their conspiracy. When both sides have presented all their evidence, it is time for closing arguments. Ramsey stands before the jury one last time. Ladies and gentlemen, you have heard weeks of testimony, you have seen the evidence, and I think the conclusion is clear. Officer Bryce Langford and Chief Reginald Voss violated Judge Naomi Whitaker's civil rights. They assaulted her. They conspired to silence her. They embezzled federal funds, and they obstructed justice. He pauses. But this case is about more than just these two defendants. It is about accountability. It is about ensuring that law enforcement officers remember they are servants of the law, not above it. It is about sending a message that when you wear a badge, you do not get to abuse your power without consequences. He looks at each juror. I ask you to return a verdict of guilty on all counts, not for revenge, but for justice. Thank you. The defense's closing arguments are passionate but hollow. They try to paint Langford and Voss as scapegoats, as dedicated officers being persecuted for doing their jobs. But the evidence speaks louder than their words. After 2 days of deliberation, the jury reaches a verdict. The courtroom is packed as the jury foreman stands. Judge Patterson addresses him. Has the jury reached a verdict? We have, Your Honor. Please read the verdict. The foreman clears his throat. In the case of United States versus Bryce Langford, on the count of deprivation of rights under color of law, we find the defendant guilty. On the count of assault, we find the defendant guilty. On the count of conspiracy, we find the defendant guilty. Langford's face goes pale. His attorney grips his shoulder. In the case of United States versus Reginald Voss, on the count of conspiracy to deprive rights, we find the defendant guilty. On the count of theft of federal funds, we find the defendant guilty. On the count of wire fraud, we find the defendant guilty. On the count of obstruction of justice, we find the defendant guilty. Voss closes his eyes, his wife sobbing in the gallery behind him. Judge Patterson thanks the jury and sets a sentencing date. As the marshals lead Langford and Voss away, Judge Whitaker watches from the gallery. She does not smile. She does not celebrate. She simply nods once, a silent acknowledgement that justice, though slow, has finally arrived. Outside the courthouse, surrounded by reporters, Judge Whitaker makes a brief statement. Today's verdict proves that no one is above the law, not officers, not supervisors, not anyone who thinks they can abuse their authority without consequence. I hope this sends a message to law enforcement agencies across the country. Respect the Constitution, respect people's rights, and remember that you serve the public, not yourselves. She walks away, flanked by her husband and Agent Ramirez, leaving behind a courtroom victory that will echo through the justice system for years to come. Federal Courthouse, Houston, Sentencing Day. The courtroom is somber as Officer Bryce Langford and Chief Reginald Voss stand before Judge Patterson for sentencing. Judge Patterson reviews the presentence reports, victim impact statements, and arguments from both sides. Then he speaks. Officer Langford, you violated your oath of office. You abused your authority. You assaulted a federal judge and violated her constitutional rights. You showed no remorse and even attempted to lie under oath. For the crime of deprivation of rights under color of law, assault, and conspiracy, I sentence you to 10 years in federal prison. Langford's face crumbles. His mother sobs in the back of the courtroom. Judge Patterson turns to Voss. Chief Voss, you enabled and orchestrated a pattern of abuse. You embezzled federal funds, obstructed justice, and betrayed the public trust. For the crimes of organized conspiracy, large-scale federal fraud, and obstruction of justice, I sentence you to 15 years in federal prison. Additionally, the court orders complete pension forfeiture and seizure of all assets accumulated illegally during your time with the Border Patrol. Voss's wife files for divorce the next day. Both men are led away to begin their sentences, their lives and careers destroyed by their own corruption. But Judge Whitaker's victory goes beyond these individual convictions. The Department of Homeland Security, under intense political pressure, invites Judge Whitaker to lead comprehensive reforms. She is appointed chair of the new Federal Border Patrol Ethics Committee. Her responsibilities include overseeing fund allocation nationwide, eliminating abusive bonus programs like the interdiction bonus, and prioritizing budget for anti-discrimination and constitutional law training over unnecessary equipment purchases. The Southland Airport, along with the entire Galveston Border Patrol District, is placed under a federal consent decree requiring independent federal oversight for at least 5 years. The decree mandates constitutional training for all officers, continuous body camera usage with automatic backup, and an independent civilian complaint review board overseen by the FBI. Southland Airport, once Langford's hunting ground, becomes a national model for law enforcement that respects civil rights. Judge Whitaker's experience also leads to the Federal Passenger Religious Freedom Restoration Act, a new law explicitly protecting religious garments from arbitrary searches at federal checkpoints without clear evidence of security threats. Her story becomes a case study in law schools and law enforcement nationwide. The image of her in handcuffs, her emerald jacket torn, appears in posters and textbooks about civil rights. Federal Courthouse, Houston, press conference. Several months after the trial, a press conference is held to announce the official reforms. Judge Naomi Whitaker and Police Chief Nolan Whitaker stand together at the podium. Police Chief Whitaker, his budget and reputation now restored, smiles proudly. Judge Whitaker, wearing an elegant cream suit with her emerald lapel pin, now a symbol, in a new perfectly tailored emerald jacket, looks directly into the cameras. They thought they could humiliate me. A federal judge. They thought my head covering, my jacket, was a symbol they could tear apart, but their action only exposed the rot they were hiding underneath. They opened a door for us to expose their financial corruption and conspiracy. She pauses, her final words like a verdict. I stood at the witness stand, and now I stand here to affirm that a badge does not grant immunity for terrorizing civil rights. Justice always prevails, and abuse of power will always be exposed by the persistence and legal knowledge of those who defend the Constitution. Use your voice, record what you see, fight for your constitutional rights. My story proves that no matter how powerful they are, no matter how much money they have, federal law applies to everyone. The story ends with Judge Naomi Whitaker and Police Chief Nolan Whitaker walking away from the podium, moving forward with the respect of all, like a couple who won the greatest battle of their lives. A battle not just for their own justice, but for democracy itself.